When Blake changed the locks after I told him the truth about Ryan being better than him, I couldn't believe he was being so dramatic about it. 5 months of stolen afternoons with Ryan, and I thought I'd been careful. But when I walked into our kitchen at 8:30 on Tuesday night, Blake was waiting at the table with yesterday's newspaper and that look that meant trouble. "Long day at the counter?" he asked without looking up. I set my purse down carefully. Mrs. Patterson needed a makeover consultation. Then Jennifer asked me to help with inventory. Blake nodded, but something felt wrong. "Jennifer called here at 6 looking for you. Said she needed to ask about tomorrow's schedule." My stomach dropped. She must have forgotten. We talked before I left. "New perfume." He finally looked at me, suspicion clear in his eyes. "Sample from work." I touched my neck where Ryan's expensive gift lingered. Blake stood and reached for my jacket. Before I could stop him, the hotel receipt fluttered to the floor. The Riverside Inn. Room 237, today's date. "Client meeting," I said quickly. "Conference room was booked." "A vendor meeting in a hotel room?" His calm tone made me angry. This was exactly why I needed Ryan. Blake never showed real emotion about anything. "God, Blake, do you have to make everything sound sordid?" It was business. "At the Riverside Inn." Just because you've never had an important enough job for real business meetings doesn't mean the rest of us haven't. Blake's expression didn't change, just got sadder. "Emma, we've been married 5 years. We have 2 daughters upstairs. Just tell me the truth." The dam broke. I was tired of pretending, tired of this boring house with this boring man. "Fine. You want truth? I've been seeing Ryan, my ex-boyfriend, and before you start your wounded martyr act, this is as much your fault as mine." Blake went white and sat down hard. "How long?" 5 months. "Why?" "Because he makes me feel alive, Blake. Something you stopped doing years ago. When's the last time you surprised me? Took me somewhere nice? Ryan does those things. He makes me feel like a woman instead of just a mother and wife." "Do you love him?" Love was complicated. What Ryan and I had was passion, excitement. It's about feeling desired, about being with someone who appreciates me. And I don't. "When's the last time you told me I was beautiful? Planned something romantic? You come home, eat, help with homework, watch TV, sleep, every day. Do you know how soul-crushing that is?" Blake looked genuinely angry for the first time I could remember. "So instead of talking to me, you had an affair?" "I tried talking for years. You brush it off or say next weekend, then spend it watching football or organizing files. So this is my fault. I had needs that weren't being met, and Ryan was there." Blake walked to the phone. "I'm calling Ryan. The 3 of us need to talk." That's when I realized how serious this had become. I barely slept. Blake had retreated to the guest room, and I spent hours alternating between guilt and defiance. By morning, I'd convinced myself Blake was overreacting. Then I saw his parents at our kitchen table. Patricia had never liked me, and she wasn't hiding it now. Navy cardigan, pearl earrings, lips pressed in disapproval. David sat in his retired police officer posture, all judgment and straight spine. Emma and Sophie were eating cereal, looking confused by their grandparents' early visit. Blake was making coffee mechanically. "Blake thought we should have a family discussion," Patricia said in her weather-disapproving tone. Blake quietly sent the girls upstairs with new books from David, leaving me alone with barely contained fury. "Sit down, Emma," David said. "Not a request." I remained standing. "This isn't your business." "When you destroy our son's family, it becomes our business," Patricia snapped. "People work through these things." "Work through affairs?" Her voice rose. "Work through betrayal and lies. Maybe if your son was half the man Ryan is, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere." Silence. Blake stopped pouring coffee. Patricia's face went red. David's jaw tightened dangerously. "Excuse me?" Patricia's voice was deadly quiet. I was tired of being the villain. "Blake is boring, predictable, content with mediocrity. Ryan has ambition. Ryan knows how to treat a woman." Blake finally turned around, pale but steady. Don't do this, Emma. Not in front of my parents. Why not? It's the truth. They raised you to be safe and ordinary. No wonder I was attracted to someone with actual passion. Patricia stood so quickly her chair scraped. How dare you? My son provides for you, been faithful, been a wonderful father, and you criticize him for not being exciting enough. David stood too. Pack your things. Get out. This is my house too. Not anymore, Blake said quietly. I called a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. The front door opened. My sister Linda walked in, taking in the scene. Seriously, Emma, this is what you've done. Let me guess, Blake called you to pile on. He thought you might need family support. Looking at this, I'm not sure you deserve it. Support me crawling back and pretending to be grateful for his wonderfully stable, mind-numbing life. Support you acting like a grown woman instead of a selfish teenager. You have 2 little girls. I was thinking I deserved to be happy. At your children's expense. I looked around at their accusatory faces, feeling trapped. You're all so perfect, right? At least I'm honest about my needs. Honest? Blake's voice was sharp. You've been lying for 5 months. Don't talk to me about honesty. Desperate and cornered, I said what would hurt most. At least Ryan knows how to satisfy a woman. At least he's not afraid to show emotion instead of just existing. The look on Blake's face made me realize I'd gone too far. Patricia gathered her purse with sharp movements. We're leaving. I won't listen to this woman destroy our family's dignity. As they headed out, I called after them. Fine, I'm taking the girls. If Blake wants divorce, he can explain why Daddy doesn't want Mommy anymore. Blake's control finally snapped. Get out, right now, and don't you dare use our children as weapons. I stormed upstairs to pack, hearing Patricia. That woman will destroy those girls if someone doesn't stop her. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. Blake was supposed to fight for me, realize what he was losing. Instead, he was letting me leave. Ryan's apartment was everything Blake's house wasn't. Sleek, modern, expensive, floor-to-ceiling windows, leather furniture, art that actually meant something instead of family photos, and Emma's crayon drawings covering every surface. I'd always felt sophisticated here, like the kind of woman who belonged in a place like this, but arriving with 2 suitcases and 2 confused little girls changed the dynamic entirely. Ryan answered the door in his usual confident style. Tailored shirt unbuttoned at the neck, that smile that had first attracted me 5 months ago. Then he saw Emma and Sophie peeking out from behind me, and his expression shifted to something close to panic. Emma? What's going on? Blake found out, I said, pushing past him into the apartment. He's being completely unreasonable about everything, so I thought we should talk about what comes next. Emma was holding her favorite stuffed elephant and looking around Ryan's sterile apartment with wide eyes. Sophie had started crying the moment we left the house and hadn't stopped. What comes next? Ryan repeated slowly. I set the suitcases down and tried to sound more confident than I felt. Well, obviously things are going to change now that everything's out in the open. Blake's talking about divorce, which is probably for the best anyway. We can finally stop sneaking around. Ryan was staring at the girls like they were exotic animals he'd never seen before. Emma had wandered over to his glass coffee table and was examining the art book stacked there. Sophie was still crying and reaching for me to pick her up. Mommy, I want to go home, Sophie said through her tears. I want Daddy. This is going to be our new home for a while, sweetie, I said, lifting her up. Isn't it nice? Look at that big TV. But Sophie just cried harder, and Emma looked like she was about to join her. Emma, Ryan said carefully, can I talk to you privately for a minute? He led me into his bedroom while the girls stayed in the living room. Emma had found his remote control and was trying to figure out how to turn on cartoons for her sister. What's going on here? Ryan asked once the door was closed. I told you. Blake found out about us. He's overreacting, but maybe this is good. Maybe this is the push we needed to stop hiding our relationship. Ryan sat down on the edge of his bed and ran his hands through his hair. Emma, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Something cold settled in my stomach. What kind of misunderstanding? About what this is, what we are. I stared at him. What we are. Ryan, we've been seeing each other for 5 months. You said you'd never felt this way about anyone before. And I meant that. What we have is incredible. The chemistry between us is amazing. But what? But I never said anything about leaving our lives behind. I'm not looking for a relationship, Emma. I'm not ready to be a stepfather to 2 little girls. I thought you understood that. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Are you telling me that all those times you said I deserved better, all those times you talked about how Blake didn't appreciate me, you never meant that I should actually leave him? Ryan's face went white. I meant you deserved to feel desired. You deserved to have someone who made you feel beautiful. But I never said I wanted to replace your husband. I felt like I was going to be sick. So what was I supposed to be? Your permanent mistress? I don't know. I guess I thought we'd figure it out as we went along. From the living room came the sound of something crashing, followed by Emma calling, "Sorry," in a panicked voice. "This is insane," I said. "You can't tell me you don't have feelings for me." Of course I have feelings for you, but having feelings for someone doesn't mean I'm ready to become an instant father. Look, Emma, you're an amazing woman. You're beautiful and passionate and everything I said you were. But this... He gestured toward the living room where Sophie was still crying. This isn't what I signed up for. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I heard myself saying, "Just for tonight. Just until I can figure out what to do next." Ryan looked relieved. Of course, absolutely, for tonight. But I could see in his eyes that he was already planning how to get rid of us as quickly as possible. I spent the next few hours trying to entertain Emma and Sophie in an apartment that clearly wasn't designed for children. There were no games, no kid-friendly snacks, no comfortable places for them to nap. Sophie kept asking for her daddy, and Emma kept asking when we were going home. Finally, after Sophie had a complete meltdown because she couldn't find her special blanket, I broke down and called Blake. "Please," I said when he answered, "let me come home. The girls are miserable, and we need to talk about this like adults." "You made your choice, Emma." "I made a mistake. Can't we work through this, for Emma and Sophie's sake?" Blake was quiet for a long moment. I thought maybe I was getting through to him. "You called me a downgrade," he said finally, "in front of my parents. You said your lover was twice the man I'd ever be. You used our private life as ammunition to hurt me as deeply as possible. That's not a mistake, Emma. That's who you really are." "Blake, please." "I've changed the locks. Don't come back to the house." The line went dead. I stood in Ryan's kitchen, holding the phone and trying to process what had just happened. Change the locks. He'd actually changed the locks. "Everything okay?" Ryan asked, but he sounded like he hoped it wasn't. "Blake locked me out. He actually locked me out of my own house." "Jesus, that's... wow." Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mommy? When are we going home?" Sophie threw up on the couch. I looked at Ryan's face and saw my answer there. He wasn't going to let us stay. Emma and Sophie were my responsibility, not his, and he'd made that clear. But where else could we go? I grabbed my purse and the girls, leaving Ryan to deal with his vomit-covered couch, and drove back to what used to be my house. Maybe Blake was just being dramatic. Maybe if he saw Emma and Sophie crying on the porch, he'd realize he was being ridiculous. But when we pulled into the driveway, I could see the new deadbolt on the front door. The house was dark except for the porch light, and Blake's car wasn't in the garage. I tried my key anyway, just to be sure. It didn't work. "Mummy, why can't we go in?" Emma asked. "Daddy's just upset right now, sweetheart. He'll calm down." But as I stood on the porch with my 2 crying daughters, looking at the house where we'd lived for 5 years, I began to realize that Blake might be more serious about this than I'd thought. The neighbor's curtains were twitching. Mrs. Patterson from across the street was standing at her window, not even trying to hide the fact that she was watching our family drama unfold. I pounded on the door. "Blake, I know you're in there. Open the door." But there was no answer. Just the sound of Sophie crying and Emma asking over and over why Daddy was mad at Mommy. Finally, I heard Blake's voice through the door, calm and controlled as always. "The papers will be served tomorrow, Emma. I suggest you find a lawyer." The Riverside Inn smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and disappointment. After 3 days with 2 confused little girls asking why they couldn't go home, I was getting desperate. Blake wouldn't return my calls. Ryan had made it clear our affair didn't include instant fatherhood. My credit card was maxing out on hotel bills. "Emma, I need you to call Daddy," I said. "Tell him how much you miss being home." Emma looked wary. "Why can't we just go home? Why is Daddy mad?" "Daddy's mad at Mommy about grown-up things. If he hears how sad you are, maybe he'll stop being stubborn." Emma dialed carefully. I could hear Blake's warm voice when he answered. "Hi, Daddy. We're still at the hotel. No, it's not fun. Sophie cries a lot. Can we come home?" "Okay, I love you too." She hung up. "He said he loves us, but grown-ups have to make hard decisions. He'll see us this weekend." I tried calling Blake myself, straight to voicemail. "Blake, this is ridiculous. The girls are miserable. Whatever problems you have with me, don't take them out on your daughters." He didn't call back. I tried his office. His secretary said he'd instructed her not to put my calls through. I should contact his attorney. His attorney. He'd actually gotten a lawyer. That evening I went to his parents' house. Patricia answered, wearing pure distaste. "I want to talk about Emma and Sophie. Blake is being vindictive." "Vindictive? Coming from a woman who betrayed her marriage vows." David appeared behind her. "You have some nerve coming here." "I'm trying to save my family." "You destroyed your family," David said. "Now you're manipulating everyone else to clean up your mess." When Blake came to take the girls for dinner, I coached them to tell him they missed home. But when he brought them back, his expression was determined. "I've talked to my lawyer. We're filing for emergency custody tomorrow." My phone buzzed. "Ryan, my wife found out about us. Don't contact me anymore." Ryan was married, had been the entire time. I'd been stupid enough to believe what we had was real. As I tucked Emma and Sophie into the hotel bed, listening to Sophie ask when they could go home, I realized I might have lost everything. But I wasn't ready to give up yet. The courtroom smelled like floor polish and broken dreams. I sat with the lawyer I'd hastily hired, a tired-looking woman who'd made it clear that my case was weak at best, and watched Blake's attorney present a devastating picture of my fitness as a mother. Hotel receipts from my affair, testimony from Blake's parents about my public outburst, character witnesses who spoke about Blake's devotion to Emma and Sophie, a social worker's report that documented the girls' distress during their week at the Riverside Inn. I tried to defend myself, tried to explain that Blake was being vindictive, that I'd made mistakes but still loved my daughters. But every word I spoke seemed to make things worse. "Your Honor," Blake's lawyer said during his closing argument, "Mr. Ashworth is asking for primary custody, not out of spite, but out of genuine concern for his daughter's emotional well-being. Mrs. Ashworth has demonstrated a pattern of putting her own desires ahead of her children's needs, and her recent behavior shows a troubling willingness to use Emma and Sophie as weapons in her conflict with their father." When the judge awarded Blake primary custody with supervised visitation for me, I felt the world tilt sideways. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was their mother. Mothers didn't lose custody battles unless they were drug addicts or criminals. But I'd lost. Blake's expression was sad, rather than triumphant, as the judge read the custody order. He looked like a man who'd won something he'd never wanted to fight for in the first place. Outside the courthouse, I could see Emma and Sophie waiting in David's car, their faces pressed against the windows. They'd been staying with Blake's parents during the custody hearing, and they looked small and confused. I was walking toward the car, thinking maybe I could explain to them that this was just temporary, when I saw Blake heading in the same direction. Something inside me snapped. All the frustration and humiliation of the past week, all the rage at being painted as the villain when Blake was just as responsible for the failure of our marriage. all the fury at watching everyone take his side while refusing to see my perspective. It all came pouring out. "You're pathetic," I screamed at him across the courthouse parking lot. "You're absolutely pathetic, Blake. You think winning some custody battle makes you a man? You think having your mummy and daddy fight your battles makes you strong?" Blake stopped walking and turned to face me, his expression calm but wary. "Emma, don't do this. Not here. Not in front of the girls." "Don't do what? Tell the truth?" Ryan was 10 times the man you'll ever be. 10 times. He knew how to make me feel alive, how to make me feel like a woman, instead of just another piece of furniture in your boring little life. I was vaguely aware of people stopping to stare, of other families leaving the courthouse giving us a wide berth, but I couldn't stop myself. You want to know why I cheated? Because you're boring. Because you have no passion, no drive, no ambition. Because being married to you is like being married to a piece of cardboard. Ryan appreciated me. Ryan knew how to treat a woman like she mattered. Patricia had gotten out of the car now, her phone raised and recording my outburst, but I was beyond caring. "You think you've won something here? You think taking my daughters away from me proves you're right? All it proves is that you're vindictive and small and—" "Mommy," Emma's voice cut through my rage like a knife. She was standing beside the car now, having escaped from her grandmother's supervision. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Mommy, why are you yelling at Daddy?" I looked at my 7-year-old daughter, at her worried expression and the way she was instinctively moving closer to Blake instead of me, and something cold settled in my chest. Sophie had started crying inside the car. I could see her through the window, covering her ears and sobbing. Blake's voice, when he spoke, was quiet and steady. "Emma, get back in the car with Grandma, please." But Emma didn't move. She just stood there staring at me like I was a stranger. "Mommy, are you sick?" The question hit me like a physical blow. Sick. That's what she thought was wrong with me. "No, baby, Mommy's not sick. Mommy's just upset because Daddy's a better parent than you are," Blake said calmly. "Because the judge agreed that Emma and Sophie need stability, not drama." I turned back to him, fury rising again. "Don't you dare act like you're some kind of saint. This is your fault too. If you had been a better husband—" "If I had been a better husband, what? You wouldn't have cheated? You wouldn't have lied for 5 months? You wouldn't have tried to destroy our family?" "I tried to save our marriage. By sleeping with another man. By finding someone who actually wanted me." The words hung in the air between us, and I realized too late that Emma was still standing there, listening to every word. Her face had gone very still, the way it did when she was trying to process something too big for her 7-year-old mind to handle. "Emma," Patricia called from the car. "Come here, sweetheart." But Emma was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not confusion or fear, but something that looked almost like disappointment. "Is that why you don't live with us anymore, Mommy? Because Daddy doesn't want you?" The question was so innocent, so matter-of-fact, that it broke something inside me. "No, baby, that's not—" "Because I heard you telling Sophie that Daddy was mean and didn't want us anymore. But Daddy cries when he thinks we can't see him, and he made pancakes yesterday, even though he burned them because he doesn't know how to make them the way you do." I stared at my daughter, at this little person who was somehow wiser than any of the adults in this situation. Blake's lawyer appeared at his elbow, a thin man with kind eyes and a briefcase full of documents that had just torn my family apart. "Mr. Ashworth, we should go. The custody order is clear, and Mrs. Ashworth's behavior today will only strengthen your case if she decides to appeal." That's when I noticed the social worker who'd interviewed the girls last week. She was standing near the courthouse steps, taking notes on a small tablet, taking notes about my public breakdown, my screaming match with Blake in front of our children, my complete inability to control myself when things didn't go my way. The custody order wasn't just about the hotel room or the affair anymore. It was about this moment right here when I'd chosen to humiliate Blake and traumatize my daughters rather than accept responsibility for my choices. Blake walked over to Emma and knelt down beside her. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go home. Is Mommy coming home too? Blake looked at me over Emma's head, and I saw something in his expression that I'd never seen before. Not anger or hurt, or even disappointment, but a kind of sad finality. No, Emma. Mommy has some things she needs to figure out first. Emma nodded solemnly and took Blake's hand. As they walked toward the car, I heard her ask, "Daddy, why was Mommy so angry?" Blake's answer was quiet, but I caught it. Sometimes when people make mistakes, they get angry at everyone else instead of themselves. I watched them drive away. Blake, Emma, Sophie, Patricia, and David. My family, minus me. The family I'd torn apart by trying to have everything I wanted instead of appreciating what I had. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. "Call me tomorrow. We need to discuss your options for supervised visitation." Supervised visitation. I was going to see my own daughters under supervision, like I was some kind of danger to them. As I stood alone in the courthouse parking lot, watching Blake's car disappear around the corner, I began to understand what I'd really lost. Not just Blake, who I'd convinced myself I didn't want anyway. Not just the house or the financial security or the comfortable suburban life I'd found so boring. I'd lost Emma's trust. I'd lost Sophie's sense of security. I'd lost the right to tuck them in at night, to help them with homework, to be the person they ran to when they were scared or hurt. I'd traded all of that for a man who'd been married the entire time we were together, who'd never wanted anything permanent with me, who'd disappeared the moment things got complicated, standing there in the parking lot, with other people's family dramas playing out around me, and the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the asphalt. I finally understood what Blake had been trying to tell me. I hadn't just made mistakes. I'd made choices, and choices had consequences. As I walked to my car, I could still hear Emma's voice asking why I was so angry, and Blake's gentle answer about people who blame everyone else instead of themselves. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd been angry at everyone else because I couldn't face the truth about what I'd done. But it was too late now. The custody order was signed. The locks had been changed. My daughters were going home to a house where I no longer lived, to a life where I was now just a weekend visitor subject to supervision. I'd wanted passion and excitement and a life that felt bigger than suburban routine. Instead, I'd gotten exactly what I deserved. If this story kept you reading until the end, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama stories. Which part shocked you the most? Most.